So, saddarshanam, the seeing of the real. Seeing in the sense you are not going to see with the pair of eyes, that is not the seeing. There is an inner seeing. That is called insight. There is sight and insight. Sight is sight. But what we are talking about is insight. Sometimes the sight covers up the insight. Sight is outgoing, bahirmukha, whereas insight is antarmukha. And if you are bahirmukha, you only have a sight and you see a few things. You remain ignorant of the truth, that what is the reality, remain ignorant of it. In spite of having a pair of eyes and seeing things all life, we remain ignorant of the reality. And therefore, we have to see the reality. Suppose you say, Swamiji, we use the word know in the meaning of seeing, then you are okay. You are welcome. So, saddarshanam means, if I have to use a technical word, perception, it is not perception, it is apperception. There is such a thing. The apperception of the reality, saddarshanam. So that is the text written by Ramana Maharshi in Tamil as well as Telugu. He wrote it in Telugu also, in Telugu script, with his own hand. And that manuscript is available somewhere. It is xeroxed and printed in the book of Saddarshanam. There are 40 verses. And so he named, somebody asked him, give a name to this text. He said, there are 40 verses. And he did not say anything more than that. And therefore, that became the name. There are 40 verses. That is the name of the book. So in Telugu or in Tamil, that is the name. There are 40 verses. I gave you English translation. There are 40 verses. That is the name. These books are named like that sometimes. So, like in Purva Mimamsa, they say Dvadasha Lakshani, that is the name. Lakshana is Adhyaya. So, having 12 chapters or 12 volumes, that is the Shastra. No other name. Similarly, Panchadashi, one Vedanta text, having 15 chapters, that is its name. So, similarly here, there are 40 verses. But then, it has to be translated into Sanskrit, and so Kavya Kantha Ganapati Muni does that job. He translates it into Sanskrit. If it remains in Telugu or Tamil, only a few people will be able to understand that, vernacular. Whereas if it is translated into Sanskrit or English, it becomes universal. That's why Kavya Kantha Ganapati Muni is a great Sanskrit scholar and a great poet. So, Kavya Kantha. You see, for some people, for scholars, the kavyas are in the head. But for poets, kavyas are not in the head, they are in the throat. Throat means they are in the heart and they come from the throat. So, he has all these poems in his throat. That is how he was called by scholars. Kavya Kantha, a great scholar and poet to begin with. And then, under the tutelage of Ramana Maharshi, he lived with Ramana Maharshi for a decade or more and became a philosopher eventually. And so that is the great man. I have seen some Sanskrit literature. I have not come across any such verses as precise and as beautiful and as appealing as those of Kavya Kantha Ganapati Muni. In Vedanta, a lot of literature is there. Like Sureshwaracharya is the Vartikakara. He wrote Vartikas. In poems he wrote. He could have written in prose. Shankaracharya did not write in poetry. He wrote in. So, Kavya Kantha. All the bhashyas, you write in prose. For some people, in poetry, your attention scholars, will be elsewhere. The kavyas are in the head. Gana, Yati, Prasa. For poets, kavyas are not in the head. They are in the head. Whereas in prose, your attention will be on the subject matter. Suppose I have to, he has make a poem, then my attention will be less on the subject matter and more on arrangement of great, some word which comes to the mind right away doesn't fit into the poem. You have to find then a thesaurus and tutelage of Ramana Maharshi. He lived with Ramana Maharshi. What a nuisance it is. It is a big distraction. Became a philosopher even. So Shankara and they all used the great man in Sanskrit. I have seen some Sanskrit literature. You just imagine somebody has to write a book on computer synthesis as how precise and as beautiful and as appealing as those of be close to the people, then write in the Vedanta, a lot of nobody talks in poetry. Like Sureshwaracharya is the Vartikakara. And that prose which is easy to understand. That is how Shankara Bhashyasa. He could have written Sureshwaracharya also could have done the same. Shankaracharya did not write. It looks as if I am complaining about Sureshwaracharya. So Kavya Kantha, the Bhashyas. The other day I was in sometimes in poetry, scholars, Kavyas are in the head. Yeti, Prasa, poets, Kavyas are not in the head. Whereas in prose, their attention will be on the subject. Is called Bruhat. Suppose I have to he has make a poem, then my attention will be less on the subject matter and more on all that Vartika in some word which comes to the mind right away doesn't fit into the poem. You have to find then half of our energy is gone into what a nuisance it is. It is a big distraction. A philosopher even. So Shankara and they all used the great man. He was reading I have seen some Sanskrit literature. You just imagine somebody has to write a book on synthesis as how precise and as beautiful. Heart right away. It need not go to the close to the people. Then write in the Vedanta, a lot of nobody talks in poetry. Like Sureshwaracharya is the Vartikakara. And that prose which is already poems here. That is how Shankara Bhashyasa. He could have written Sureshwaracharya also could have done the same. Shankaracharya did not write. It looks as if I am complaining about Sureshwaracharya. Kavya Bhashya. The other day I was in sometimes in poetry, scholars, Kavyas are in the head. Yeti, Prasa, poets, Kavyas are not in the head. Whereas in prose, their attention will be on the subject. Is called Bruhat. Suppose I have to he has make a poem, then my attention will be less on the subject matter and more on all that Vartika in some word which comes to the mind right away doesn't fit into the poem. You have to find then half of our energy is gone into what a nuisance it is. A big distraction. A philosopher even. So Shankara and they all used the great man. He was reading I have seen some literature. You just imagine somebody has to write a book on synthesis as how precise and as beautiful. Heart right away. It need not go to the close to the people. Then write in the Vedanta, a lot of nobody talks in poetry. Like Sureshwaracharya is the Vartikakara. And that prose which is already poems here. That is how Shankara Bhashyasa. Could have written Sureshwaracharya also could have done. Shankaracharya did not write. It looks as if I am complaining about Sureshwaracharya. Kavya Kantha, Bhashya. The other day I was sometimes in poetry, scholars, Kavyas are in the head. Yeti, Prasa, poets, Kavyas are not in the head. Whereas in prose, their attention will be on the subject. Is called Bruhat. Suppose I have to he has make a poem, then my attention will be less on the subject matter and more on all that Vartika in some word which comes to the mind right away doesn't fit into the poem. You have to find then half of our energy is gone into what a nuisance it is. A big distraction. A philosopher even. So Shankara and they all used the great man. He was reading I have seen some literature. You just imagine somebody has to write a book on synthesis as how precise and as beautiful. Heart right away. It need not go to the close to the people. Then write in the Vedanta, a lot of nobody talks in poetry. Like Sureshwaracharya is the Vartikakara. And that prose which is already poems here. That is how Shankara Bhashyasa. Could have written Sureshwaracharya also could have done. Shankaracharya did not write. It looks as if I am complaining about Sureshwaracharya. Kavya Kantha, Bhashya. The other day I was sometimes in poetry, scholars, Kavyas are in the head. Yeti, Prasa, poets, Kavyas are not in the head. Whereas in prose, their attention will be on the subject. Is called Bruhat. Suppose I have to he has make a poem, then my attention will be less on of the subject matter and more on all that Vartika in some word which comes to the mind right away doesn't poet to the poem. You have to find then half of your energy is gone into a nuisance issue. It is a big distraction. Philosopher, Shankara, they all give us reason. I have not seen, I have seen literature. We just imagine somebody has to write a Gita as homicide, as the heart right away. He need not go so close to the people. Right in the Ranga, lot of nobody talks in poetry. Like Sureshwaracharya is the Vartikakara. And that is already poems he wrote in Shankara Bhashya. Would have written Sureshwaracharya also should have some. Acharya did not write. Looks as if I am explaining about Sureshwaracharya Kali Bhashya. The other day I was sometimes in poetry, scholars, Kavyas are in the Hena, Yeti, Prasa, poets, Kavyas are in the head. Whereas in prose, there are the heart and the separate is called Bhagavad. Suppose I have to Bhashya has all the poems, then my attention is less on the subject matter and more on all that Vartika in some word which comes to the mind right away doesn't poet to the poem. You have to find then half of your energy is gone into a nuisance issue. It is a big distraction. Philosopher, Shankara, they all give us reason. I have not seen, I have seen literature. We just imagine somebody has to write a Gita as homicide, as the heart right away. He need not go so close to the people. Right in the Ranga, lot of nobody talks in poetry. Like Sureshwaracharya is the Vartikakara. And that is already poems he wrote in Shankara Bhashya. Would have written Sureshwaracharya also should have some. Acharya did not write. Looks as if I am explaining about Sureshwaracharya Kali Bhashya. The other day I was sometimes in poetry, scholars, Kavyas are in the Hena, Yeti, Prasa, poets, Kavyas are in the head. Whereas in prose, there are the heart and the separate is called Bhagavad. Suppose I have to Bhashya has all the poems, then my attention is less on the subject matter and more on. You have to go to a party by wearing it, then only it will be meaningful. I have to go to a party. Then the security person, they employ a security person, advisor. The advisor, he told, ma'am, you cannot wear it to the Shankara, they all give us reason. So I have not seen, I have not literature. We just imagine somebody has to write Gita as homicide, as the heart right away. He need not go so close to the people. Right in the Ranga, lot of nobody talks in poetry. Like Sureshwaracharya is the Vartika. And that is already poems he wrote in Shankara Bhashya. Would have written Sureshwaracharya also should have some. Acharya did not write. Looks as if I am explaining about Sureshwaracharya Kali Bhashya. The other day I was sometimes in poetry, scholars, Kavyas are in the Hena, Yeti, Prasa, poets, Kavyas are in the head. Whereas in prose, there are the heart and the separate is called Bhagavad. Suppose I have to Bhashya has all the poems, then my attention is less more on. You have to go to a party by wearing it, then only it will be meaningful. I have to go to a party. Then the security person, they employ a security person, advisor. The advisor, he told, ma'am, you cannot wear it to the Shankara, they all give us reason. So I have not seen, I have literature. We just imagine somebody has to write Gita as homicide, as the heart right away. He need not go so close to the people. Right in the Ranga, lot of nobody talks in poetry. Like Sureshwaracharya is the Vartika. And that is already poems he wrote in Shankara Bhashya. Would have written Sureshwaracharya also should have some. Acharya did not write. Looks as if I am explaining about Sureshwaracharya Kali Bhashya. The other day I was sometimes in poetry, scholars, Kavyas are in the Hena, are badly stuck with names and forms, they are not going to be budged out of the names and forms. For them, everything is names and forms. They are names and forms. God is names and forms. Guru is names and forms. Jagat is names and forms. So how can you make anybody see the truth? It is a cry in the wilderness of names and forms. But anyway, you have to cry, therefore you cry. But otherwise, it is a wilderness of names and forms in which we are raising our voice against the names and forms. It is a duty to do, and it is the labor of love, and therefore it is done. Otherwise, it is a cry in the wilderness, because people, what they call samsara, it is but the wilderness of names and forms. That is how it is. And as long as you have your names and forms, they are very cozy and very comforting names and forms, So long you remain in the darkness of ignorance. I cannot be more forthright than that. So that is how Saddarshan. The very first verse moves in those lines. Vishwam asti. Vishwam. He uses the word Vishwam very consciously. He did not say Jagat, he said Vishwam. He says Jagat where it needs to be said Jagat. So like even the Dakshinamurti Stotram, it doesn't start of names and forms. But anyway, you have to cry, therefore you cry. But otherwise, it is a wilderness of names and forms in which we are raising our voice against the names and forms. It is a duty to do, and it is the labor of love, and therefore it is done. Otherwise, it is a cry in the wilderness, because people, what they call samsara, it is but the wilderness of names and forms. That is how it is. And as long as you have your names and forms, they are very cozy and very comforting names and forms, So long you remain in the darkness of ignorance. I cannot be more forthright than that. So that is how Saddarshan. The very first verse moves in those lines. Vishwam asti. Vishwam. He uses the word Vishwam very consciously. He did not say Jagat, he said Vishwam. He says Jagat where it needs to be said Jagat. So like even the Dakshinamurti Stotram, it doesn't start of names and forms. But anyway, you have to cry, therefore you cry. But otherwise, it is a wilderness of names and forms in which we are raising our voice against the names and forms. It is a duty to do, and it is the labor of love, and therefore it is done. Otherwise, it is a cry in the wilderness, because people, what they call samsara, it is but the wilderness of names and forms. That is how it is. And as long as you have your names and forms, they are very cozy and very comforting names and forms, So long you remain in the darkness of ignorance. I cannot be more forthright than that. So that is how Saddarshan. The very first verse moves in those lines. Vishwam asti. Vishwam. He uses the word Vishwam very consciously. He did not say Jagat, he said Vishwam. He says Jagat where it needs to be said Jagat. So like even the Dakshinamurti Stotram, it doesn't start of names and forms. But anyway, you have to cry, therefore you cry. But otherwise, it is a wilderness of names and forms in which we are raising our voice against the names and forms. It is a duty to do, and it is the labor of love, and therefore it is done. Otherwise, it is a cry in the wilderness, because people, what they call samsara, it is but the wilderness of names and forms. That is how it is. And as long as you have your names and forms, they are very cozy and very comforting names and forms, So long you remain in the darkness of ignorance. I cannot be more forthright than that. So that is how Saddarshan. The very first verse moves in those lines. Vishwam asti. Vishwam. He uses the word Vishwam very consciously. He did not say Jagat, he said Vishwam. He says Jagat where it needs to be said Jagat. So like even the Dakshinamurti Stotram, it doesn't start of names and forms. But anyway, you have to cry, therefore you cry. But otherwise, it is a wilderness of names and forms in which we are raising our voice against the names and forms. It is a duty to do, and it is the labor of love, and therefore it is done. Otherwise, it is a cry in the wilderness, because people, what they call samsara, it is but the wilderness of names and forms. That is how it is. And as long as you have your names and forms, they are very cozy and very comforting names and forms, you know. So long you remain in the darkness of ignorance. I cannot be more forthright than that. So that is how Saddarshan. The very first verse moves in those lines. Vishwam asti. Vishwam. He uses the word Vishwam very consciously. He did not say Jagat, he said Vishwam. He says Jagat where it needs to be said Jagat. So like even the Dakshinamurti Stotram, it doesn't start of names and forms. But anyway, you have to cry, therefore you cry. But otherwise, it is a wilderness of names and forms in which we are raising our voice against the names and forms. It is a duty to do, and it is the labor of love, and therefore it is done. Otherwise, it is a cry in the wilderness, because people, what they call samsara, it is but the wilderness of names and forms. That is how it is. And as long as you have your names and forms, they are very cozy and very comforting names and forms, you know. So long you remain in the darkness of ignorance. I cannot be more forthright than that. So that is how Saddarshan. The very first verse moves in those lines. Vishwam asti. Vishwam. He uses the word Vishwam very consciously. He did not say Jagat, he said Vishwam. He says Jagat where it needs to be said Jagat. So like even the Dakshinamurti Stotram, it doesn't start of names and forms. But anyway, you have to cry, therefore you cry. But otherwise, it is a wilderness of names and forms in which we are raising our voice against the names and forms. It is a duty to do, and it is the labor of love, and therefore it is done. Otherwise, it is a cry in the wilderness, because people, what they call samsara, it is but the wilderness of names and forms. That is how it is. And as long as you have your names and forms, they are very cozy and very comforting names and forms, you know. So long you remain in the darkness of ignorance. I cannot be more forthright than that. So that is how Saddarshan. The very first verse moves in those lines. Vishwam asti. Vishwam. He uses the word Vishwam very consciously. He did not say Jagat, he said Vishwam. He says Jagat where it needs to be said Jagat. So like even the Dakshinamurti Stotram, it doesn't start of names and forms. But anyway, you have to cry, therefore you cry. But otherwise, it is a wilderness of names and forms in which we are raising our voice against the names and forms. It is a duty to do, and it is the labor of love, and therefore it is done. Otherwise, it is a cry in the wilderness, because people, what they call samsara, it is but the wilderness of names and forms. That is how it is. And as long as you have your names and forms, they are very cozy and very comforting names and forms, you know. So long you remain in the darkness of ignorance. I cannot be more forthright than that. So that is how Sabdarshan. The very first verse moves in that line. Vishwam Asti. Vishwam. He uses the word Vishwam very consciously. He did not say Jagat, he said Vishwam. He says Jagat where it needs to be said Jagat. So like even the Dakshinamurti Stotram, it doesn't start of names and forms. But anyway, you have to cry, therefore you cry. But otherwise, it is a wilderness of names and forms in which we are raising our voice against the names and forms. It is a duty to do, and it is the labor of love, and therefore it is done. Otherwise, it is a cry in the wilderness, because people, what they call samsara, it is but the wilderness of names and forms. That is how it is. And as long as you have your names and forms, they are very cozy and very comforting names and forms, So long you remain in the darkness of ignorance. I cannot be more forthright than that. So that is how Sabdarshan. The very first verse moves in that line. Vishwam Asti. Vishwam. He uses the word Vishwam very consciously. He did not say Jagat, he said Vishwam. He says Jagat where it needs to be said Jagat. So like even the Dakshinamurti Stotram, it doesn't start of names and forms. But anyway, you have to cry, therefore you cry. But otherwise, it is a wilderness of names and forms in which we are raising our voice against the names and forms. It is a duty to do, and it is the labor of love, and therefore it is done. Otherwise, it is a cry in the wilderness, because people, what they call samsara, it is but the wilderness of names and forms. That is how it is. And as long as you have your names and forms, they are very cozy and very comforting names and forms, So long you remain in the darkness of ignorance. I cannot be more forthright than that. So that is how Sabdarshan. The very first verse moves in that line. Vishwam Asti. Vishwam. He uses the word Vishwam very consciously. He did not say Jagat, he said Vishwam. The truth. Then what is the truth? It can wait. Truth can wait. First settle the appearance issue. We'll come back at 11:25. Om Purnamada Purnamidam. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Shruti Smriti Purananamayam Namami Bhagavad Pada Shankaram Lokashankaram Namah Purasthadatha Prushtataste Namostute Sarvata Eva Sarva Ananta Viryamita Vikramastvam Sarvam Samapnoshi Tatosi Sarvaha. So Arjuna is praising the glory of Lord Shri Krishna as Vishwarupa. So Shri Krishna is a particular form which is transient, which was there for a while and then gone. Whereas Vishwarupa is there all the time. As long as the creation is, the Vishwarupa appears. So Vishwarupa is we hear it all the time, Vishwarupa. And then we try to figure out Vishwarupa in terms of Namarupa. That is how we do it. Probably we are making a mistake there. Namarupa is one thing separate from everything else. That is what Namarupa is. In the context of gold and ornaments, necklace is Namarupa. So bracelet is Namarupa. Gold is not Namarupa. Okay? In that box of the illustration, gold is beyond Namarupa. Similarly, Krishna is a form, Rama is a form. But then Vishwarupa, that which includes all the forms in itself, it is not one more form. If it is one more form, then it will be different from every other form. It cannot include all the forms in itself. Only the Arupa, which is beyond the names and forms, can include all the names and forms in itself. That is how the Vishwarupa is talking about. Verse is that. So, if it is a given form, it will have some directional preferences. Any form will have directional preferences. That is how the form is. A form is but a configuration of its various parts in space. That is how a form is understood. It is limited in space, and in that limitation there are directions. It is small in the front, small, big in the back, whatever. Left, right, up and down. Limited in space. But space itself is directionless. And anything which is spaceless, which is beyond the space, cannot have a given direction unless you say it pervades all directions. The directionless is in every direction. So the nameless and formless pervades all names and forms. This is the Vedantic principle of immanence and transcendence. This principle has to be appreciated well. Without understanding this principle, you cannot appreciate the relation between an unreal world and the reality called Brahman. So Brahman is immanent in the unreal world. Why the unreal world appears? Because of the immanence of the Brahman it appears. Appearance requires a shining, light it requires. A non-existent thing cannot have its own light. An existing thing can have its own light, but not a non-existing thing. And therefore the unreal world cannot make itself appear. The movie is unreal, it cannot make itself appear. Suppose the movie, that a film bundle is given. Can you see movie in that? You cannot. That is the old-fashioned movie. Nowadays they have a digital. Suppose I give pen drive in which the movie is sitting. So can you see the movie in it? No. Need a light in which it has to appear. Similarly, the unreal world appears in the light, which is called Brahman. Brahman is the jnanam, the absolute awareness in which the world comes to light. Anyway, therefore, that is the immanence. Therefore, what all appears is inherited by, not inherited by, so is inhabited by the reality. The reality reflects in all that appears. Yet the reality is transcendent. That this transcendent is very important. Otherwise, if Bhagavan is immanent in the unreal world, only immanent, then he becomes unreal too. Or he becomes stuck with the world, which is real or unreal. Like all of us are stuck with the world, Bhagavan also gets stuck. No, then it is not Bhagavan. He is one more among us. So Bhagavan is not stuck by the world in which he reflects or he brings to light. Because Bhagavan is transcendent. The transcendent principle is not difficult to appreciate. It is easy. Taking the standard example of gold and jewelry, the jewels, they can be good or bad. They can be beautiful or ugly, but never the gold. Gold is neither beautiful nor ugly. Gold is neither good nor bad. It is what it is. This good, bad, beautiful, ugly, these opposites apply to the world of jewelry only. But then there is no world of this example I know that you know, but let me do that ritual of describing the example, because the point is important. Therefore, the world of jewelry is pervaded by the gold. Without gold being immanent, you cannot have the world of jewelry. The world of jewelry is, or it shines, or it appears only because of the immanence of the gold. But then the gold must get the characteristics of the world of jewelry, which are the opposites. No, it doesn't get. That is its transcendence. Therefore, you may be in the family, immanent, but you can remain uninvolved or uncontaminated or untainted by being a witness. It is like that. That is the spirit of this whole discussion. So God is immanent and yet transcendent. That is Ishvara. What is Jiva? Jiva is immanent and bound. He is not transcendent. He is involved. That is Jiva. Suppose Jiva becomes immanent. Jiva is already immanent in the world in which he is involved. Suppose while being immanent, he becomes transcendent. Then he is Ishvara. Anyway, this discussion is like that. Therefore, Ishvara is Vishvarupaha. And therefore, Arjuna prostrates unto that Vishvarupa. The Upanishadic statements, they reflect in this verse. In Mundaka Upanishad, we have the famous mantras, Brahma Purastat. He wants to know where is Brahman. Because the Brahman is a thing. And there are so many other things. And we know all about the other things, but we don't know about Brahman. Therefore, so Brahma is one more thing. And so we want to know it. Therefore, we ask the question, where is Brahman? So the answer given is Brahma Purastat. It is in the eastern quarter. Oh, is it? But then Brahma Paschat. It is in the western quarter. Now, that is not acceptable. Whatever is in the eastern quarter is in the eastern quarter. It cannot be in the western quarter. How can that be? But then it is in east, also in the west. Then it is Brahma Dakshinataha, Brahma Uttarataha. It is in the south and also it is in the north. And Brahma Adhastat, Brahma Uparishtat. It is below and it is above. Now we are not talking of a thing contained in space. We are talking of a thing which transcends the space, the spaceless. Only the spaceless can pervade all the space. Space bound cannot pervade the space. It is pervaded by the space. The spaceless pervades the space. And so what you call Ishvara is the spaceless. It is the Brahman who pervades the east and also the west. Namah purastat atha prushtataste. Prushtataha means piche, west, the paschat. And south and north you add, that they are not here, doesn't matter. Then namostute sarvataha eva. My prostrations unto you, you pervade all. Sarvataha, in all directions you are. Sarvataha, that taha is saptami, sarvatra, not panchami. Panchami generally, taha is panchami, but here it is saptami. Sarva vibhaktikas tasil, that is how they call it. So it is saptami. So everywhere, sarvataha. Not only Brahman pervades everywhere, means Brahman is immanent in all, yet transcendent. That is not the end of it. Brahman is all, sarva. You are all. You see, there are two steps here. These two steps have to be carefully appreciated. Generally, students of Vedanta, either they don't see them clearly or they mix them up and get mixed up. And also, where the first step is required, they jump into the second, and where we come to the second, they are into the first. Like that, this is the mix-up. This mix-up should be carefully appreciated. There are two steps. The first step is called viveka, discrimination. Till now I talked the language of discrimination. Did you notice that? Gold is immanent in the world of jewelry, yet it is transcendent. I am discriminating the gold from the jewelry. That is the first step. You have to do that step. Suppose you want to bypass that step, you make a mistake. You are not supposed to bypass. Because bypassing that step, you mix up the whole blessed thing and make a khichdi out of it. There will not be any meaningful conclusion coming out of it. Going round and round and round, beating around the bush like that. Should not. Therefore, the clarity of thought must be there. The first step is discriminate. The discrimination is the very important step. It is the most crucial step in the pursuit of the truth. Discriminate. So what is all not the truth? That is the discrimination. Then you arrive at the truth. Having arrived at the truth, here there are two philosophies again. Sankhya versus Advaita, Vedanta. In Sankhya, what is discriminated and dismissed, it is real and it sits there. This is the Prakriti Purusha Viveka of the Sankhyas. You are the Purusha, you are not the Prakriti. Prakriti is the body, mind, that is the Prakriti. You are the Purusha, you are not the Prakriti. That is the Viveka. Okay, having done the Viveka, Purusha is now discriminated or discerned from the Prakriti. Therefore, there is no mix-up. So Prakriti remains in its place, Purusha remains in his place or her place. His, her, they will not be there anymore. Only in association with Prakriti, his, her will be there, gender will be there. When body-mind is dismissed as not the Purusha, then Purusha is Purusha, pure Chaitanyam. And Prakriti is the nature. So Guna Trigunatmika Prakriti. For the Sankhya people, the Prakriti is real and Purusha is also real. Therefore, now two real things. That's why they are Dvaitis. And therefore, by the discrimination is enough. Having discriminated, you are able to keep the Prakriti aside and you become free from the Prakriti. That is all. Free. That is the freedom. That is moksha. And Prakriti will be there. It will be there. It is real. Then there is a problem in that. If it is real, then you may fall back into the Prakriti one more time. Therefore, the bandha is always waiting. So that kind of a problem could arise. Whereas in Vedanta, it is slightly different. A very crucial difference is there. You first discriminate, and therefore you are the Purusha, you are not the Prakriti. Prakriti is body, mind, and the world. That is the Prakriti. You are the Purusha, you are not the Prakriti. This is the 13th chapter. In the beginning you see a lot of it. So you are the Purusha and that is the Prakriti. Discriminate. First step is that. Having discriminated, you will now discover that what you have discriminated against, what you have discriminated yourself against, that is not real. Therefore, now you alone are. And the Prakriti, it just doesn't exist. It is unreal. You alone are. Therefore, earlier, what you call yourself and what you call the world and what you call body-mind, all of it, you alone are. Therefore, you are now all. This is called a Sarvatma Bhava. Suppose you come to Sarvatma Bhava first. Suppose you start with Sarvatma Bhava. Now you know what happens. Body is Atma, mind is Atma, and when body is Atma, mind is Atma, why should you discriminate at all? Therefore, body is myself, mind is myself, everything is myself. He adds that just to sound great, but he is a body-obsessed guy. Okay? Body is myself, mind is myself, everything is myself. But that person is my enemy. Now how enemy comes? This is the greatest pitfall of Vedanta students, that instead of putting the proper focus in the proper place, in the very first step, they talk the language of the one who has scaled the mountain. So, arurukshuhu, arudhasya bhasham braviti. So, he is supposed to scale the mountain. The first step he is yet to take. He talks the language of the person who reached there. And therefore, he will never reach anywhere. Anyway, so you have to follow this step. First step is viveka. Having done the viveka rightly, you automatically arrive at the Sarvatma Bhava. And in the verses, both are presented in that sequence. Like, O Brahman, you are in the east, but you are in the west. That means it's not limited to east. Already east is getting dismissed by saying west. And then by saying north and south, and then adhaha and upar, all the six are said simultaneously, one after the other. And now you are talking of, not talking of space anymore. It sounds like you are talking of spatial configuration, but eventually you are going beyond the space, transcending. And then having transcended the space, space will not be sitting there separately from you. It falls back and merges in you. Therefore, you alone are. What happened to the east, west, north, south? They all merged in the Vastu. So, the unreal doesn't run away. The unreal merges in the real. Therefore, real alone is. Okay? Therefore, the real becomes all. The real it is, the unreal also it is. When the unreal appeared, it alone appeared as the real, unreal. Therefore, there is only the real, and that is all. That is how we use the language of Sarvatma Bhava. So first Viveka, then Sarvatma Bhava. That is the sequence one has to follow. If you fail to see the difference clearly, then there are a few mistakes that can happen. One is the mix-up which I have already described. Second is, then Purusha and Prakriti, then there are two things, then where is Advaita now? So the likelihood of falling into Dvaita Then some people have fallen into a contradiction. Arey, what is that? This Swami talked about body separate from Atma in last Sunday, but this Sunday he says everything you are. So, like that, into this kind of a conflict also. Anyway, so you have to follow Viveka and then Sarvatma Bhava. Generally, people make a mistake of starting with Sarvatma Bhava. And so they start with everything is Ishvara. They start there. Arey, what is your equation with your body mind? What are you doing with your emotions? And are you a slave of your emotions, or are you commanding them? Do you have any space with reference to the body? No, I don't have space. Any with reference to emotions? That also I don't have. Then what? Everything is Ishvara. Now everything is Ishvara means its body is also Ishvara, everything is Ishvara. Somebody is making upma, preparing upma. You know how to prepare upma? So take this thing and water and boil and add. So somebody came. Hey, what are you doing? I am cooking Brahman, he said. So this is the Sarvatma Bhava. Is he cooking Brahman? Is he not cooking upma? No, upma is also Brahman. Who told you upma is also Brahman? Wrong it is. Upma is not Brahman. Upma is Namarupa and unreal. Jano? This is how the mix-up happens. So you should not. Okay, you got that? Therefore, sarvataha eva, you pervade all. That up to that it is viveka. All and you pervade all. Viveka. Now, once the all is dismissed as unreal, then you become all, he sarva. Your power is infinite, ananta virya. And your prowess is infinite, amita vikramaha tvam. Ananta virya is the address, tvam amita vikramaha. So that is the context of the context is also there, the context of battle. And even the Vishwarupa, in that Vishwarupa form, he is devouring everything. That is what Vishwarupa is. So you devour everything. Vedanti is like that. He devours everything. Namarupa he devours. So one poet said, I have caught hold of the death and made it into a paste and mixed it with water and drank, and I am now sitting here deathless. That is what a poet said. I devoured death. Only death or birth also. You cannot devour like that selectively. I devoured both birth and death. I was never born and I am not going to die. Why, what happened? Everybody seems to be born and dying. Yeah, that is true, but I have devoured both birth and death. That is how a poet says. And therefore, that context of Vishwarupa, all the forms he pervades, ultimately, all the forms he devours and remains as the formless one without the second reality. Therefore, in that sense, your prowess is infinite and your power is infinite. And you pervade all and you devour all and you are all. That is the verse. Bhashyakara will explain. You see, there is a thing called science and there is a thing called religion. There is always a conflict between science and religion. You can see that. Always it is there. In Europe, the word secular came out of this conflict. There was a conflict with science and the examples of Galileo, Bruno. So these are some of the glaring examples of the conflict between religion and science. So such a conflict is inevitable when you identify religion with belief. Because science is not for belief. Science is for observation, investigation and understanding. It is not for belief. Whereas if you identify religion with belief, a conflict is inevitable. And whenever or wherever you see a conflict between science and religion, you have to clearly understand that there the religion is identified with belief. But is that not religion? Religion is belief only, you know. Okay, that is how it is taken. But the masses all over the world, the masses take the religion as belief. That is how the masses practice religion. And for the masses, in the context of that religion based on belief, so the outward form of religion is the real religion. There is no other religion. The outward form alone is the real religion. That's why one religion is always at loggerheads with the other religion, because they are opposing each other based on their respective belief of the outward form of religion. So the outward form of religion is taken as a real religion. That is the most unfortunate aspect, in which a greater stress is laid on secondary things of religion, and not on the spirit of religion. On the secondary things of religion are there, like social customs. They are related to religion, and from society to society they change. And when the social customs change based on religion, so people become unhappy and they become hostile also. Therefore, when such a stress is laid on the outer forms of religion, which are entirely based on belief, like social customs, ceremonies vary from place to place, from religion to religion, ceremonies vary. And the people take that the ceremonies are the religion. They are not the true religion. They are the outer forms of the religion. Then rituals. Rituals also vary from religion to religion. They are outer form of the religion. Then religious leaders. They come with the entire baggage of religion, you know. The ceremonies, the rituals, and the leader. Why the leader? Because he leads the masses in ceremonies and rituals. Therefore the leaders. Then the particular beliefs with reference to death, etc. This death and the beliefs associated with death are a critical aspect of every religion, the outer form of religion. They are very critical. What some people believe about death in one religion, they are totally opposite in the other religion. So like that. So these are all outer forms of religion, and this is not the true religion, what all I have described. They are secondary aspects or outer forms of religion, and the masses follow these outer forms. And the religious leaders also promote these outer forms. But that is not the true religion. So the spirit of religion is essentially the change of heart. That is the spirit of religion. It is not the performance of a particular ritual. Because in performing a particular ritual, you are only practicing the outer form of the religion. There is no change of heart involved in it. But if you say there is change of heart, then that is the true religion, with or without the outer form of the religion. Therefore, you may put some stress on the outer form of the religion, that is all right. But you have to put a real stress on the change of heart. Change of heart means the way, this expression, this is the essential definition of a religion. The way people have to look at it, that expression is a critical expression. The way you think and feel, that is what it is. It is not just thinking alone, or it is not about only some feeling. Then it becomes sentimental. So the way you think and feel, that defines whether you are following the true religion whether the spirit of religion is with you or you are stuck with the outer form of religion alone. The way you think and feel, that defines the essence of religion. When you come to the true spirit of religion, it will not be opposed to science anymore. It is not hostile to science anymore. In fact, it is complementary to the science. And when science and the true spirit of religion put together makes the human existence complete. And therefore, these verses have to be understood in the spirit of true religion. So, here the vision is what is popularly known as God consciousness. You think and feel God in all. That is the spirit of this verse. You see, there is a law, this is connected to the psyche. You cannot focus on two things at the same time. That is, there you should put your emphasis. This multitasking attitude is not valid. Even the people who assume that they are multitasking, they are doing only one thing at a time. And in their anxiety to do many things, they are messing up that one thing. In Stanford University, in the Department of Psychology, there is a great professor who published a lot of scientific papers, peer-reviewed scientific papers, not some pseudoscience, in prestigious journals. And all the essence of those papers, it appeared as a monograph somewhere. And I was reading that monograph one time. So they very perfectly established that multitasking is a myth. There is no such thing as multitasking. You can do only one thing at a time. And in your anxiety to do many things, that is human mind, the illusion of doing many things, of accomplishing many things, that is the illusion. People are deluded what to say. You have to say deluded. You cannot say illuded. That version, that's why I jump from illusions to deluded. So I wish illuded is also correct. Anyway, so they live in this myth that they are accomplishing many things. You can focus on only one thing at a time. So bari bari they say. Even when you see two fingers, you see bari bari. You see first one finger and then see the second finger and then make it into a couple. The mind puts the two things together. It's one and one together into two. That is how it happens, but it happens quickly. So you have to focus on one thing. Therefore, when you feel and you think and feel in terms of names and forms all around, maybe what I discussed in the first talk has some influence into the second talk also. That is how human mind works, I suppose. So I am trying to witness my own thought process. So when you think and feel in terms of names and forms all around, then once you say names and forms, you have to add one more phrase to that. And then get into the desires and fears that they create. Where is the question of thinking and feeling in terms of one God as all? You cannot. It won't work. Don't try to be very clever about it. And you cannot eat the cake and keep it too. So what I am driving at is, you should be able to rise above the plethora of these names and forms. See how is your consciousness moving. That is the true religion. You look at the movement of the consciousness, your own consciousness, and then learn to see the pitfalls in it, the blemishes in it, and in the process you overcome those blemishes. This is how the change of heart. It's an expression, change of heart, which means a transformation in the consciousness. That is what I mean when I say how you think and feel. So you have to rise above the world consciousness into the God consciousness. The basic difference between world and God is, world is plural. Names and forms galore. That is what the world is. And God is not plural. One without the second. You see, when there is only one without the second, it cannot have a name and form. You should know that. Again, you cannot put a name and form there. That is silly. You have not got anything, really speaking, anytime you try to push the names and forms. So the truth is essentially nameless and formless. When it is nameless and formless, that is the truth which pervades this plethora of names and forms, immanent, yet transcendent. And ultimately, when the names and forms are dismissed for what they are, mere appearances, mere projections of an ignorant mind, that is what they are. It's not that something is appearing before you. Where from that something has come? It is projected by your own mind. And therefore, you know it that it is a projection and dismiss it. Then the reality is with you. It is already there. And it is the all. It is the one without the second. And you can now call it bhutapurvagatya. When you compare and contrast it with what was earlier in ignorance, you can now call it, oh, it is the only thing and it is the all. That is how you call it. That is how the verse is. So, let us see what Bhashyakara says. Namah purastat purvasyam dishi tubhyam. So in the eastern direction, my prostrations. To prostrations to what? Unto what? To the direction or what? No, tubhyam, unto you. So you have to put Chaturthi Vibhakti because of the Namaha. Atha prusthataste prusthataha apichate. And then consider the behind. Behind is, prusthataha is the behind. Generally you are standing facing the sun. Therefore the back becomes the west. And therefore in the western direction also, my prostrations unto you. Not to the western direction, not to the things that are sitting in the western direction. That is all silly. So there is only God, and you be conscious of that God. That is the change of heart. My prostrations unto you. Namaha astute sarvata eva sarvasu dikshu sarvatra sthitaya. Sthita means, you see, irrevocably or firmly staying. That is sthita. The English stha, Sanskrit stha, and English stay are one and the same. So sthita, stable, stability and all that. Still also comes from that only. Sthira becomes still. All same. Therefore, you alone abide. Stha means abide. You alone abide everywhere, in all the directions. So how come he alone abides? What about all the other things that are there? He sarva, you are the all. Okay? Ananta virya. Oh, I thought I took it as two words. Ananta virya, the address. Amita vikramaha tvam. That is how I took. But Bhashyakara makes it into a single compound. You can do that. Bhashyakara surprises you all the time. So single compound. So maybe technically I am okay, but as Bhashyakara's version is the right thing to follow. Ananta viryamita vikramaha anantam viryam asya amito vikramaha asya. Samasas. In fact, if you are a student of Samasa Kusumavali, you would prefer to say Anantam Viryam Yasya Saha Ananta Viryaha Amitaha vikramaha yasya saha amita vikramaha ananta viryascha amita vikramascha ananta virya amita vikramaha. That is what it is. Okay? You are the one with infinite power and you are the one with infinite prowess. Power and prowess. Power is potential. Prowess is in application. Mechanical, kinetic, potential, kinetic. Power is kinetic, Ananta Virya. Ananta Vikrama is kinetic. Ananta Virya is potential, right? Power. So power dynamo is Ananta Virya. And using the dynamo, the car is running. That is Ananta Vikrama. Like that. Where there is dynamo, there is this Tesla. It has a dynamo. Dynamo, right? Can I say dynamo? Yeah. And it runs. The dynamo is the Ananta Virya. The running is Ananta Vikrama. That is Bhagavan. Okay? Ananta Virya Mita Vikramastvam. Then he says, Viryam Samarthyam Vikramah Parakramaha. I have unnecessarily explained. He says, he doesn't leave it. He said, that is exactly what he said. Viryam is the potential, Samarthyam. Vikramaha is what you display out of that potential. Parakramaha. Para is outward. Kramo, moving. So the potential which is just sitting here, it is now moving forward. So one is Virya, other is Vikrama. Both you have in the same guy. Only the one who has Virya can have Vikrama. Right? Virya in someone and Vikrama in somebody else, it will not be there. Shankara says the similar thing. Viryavanapi kaschit shastradi vishaye na parakramate manda parakramo vam. He is putting it in a slightly different way. First, you should have the potential, Virya. Then having got the potential, you can display it. Ferociously or fiercely you can display it. It is possible. Or one has Virya, ability he has, the potential he has, but when it comes to using that potential, like for example in the battlefield, he has the ability, now he has to take the weapon and use it on the enemy, like a surgical strike. How to know Indian army has all the power? They say it is a very powerful army. How to know? A surgical strike will prove it. Suppose the leadership doesn't have the heart for displaying the power when it is needed, then there will be only power, no surgical strike. When the leadership has that prowess, then surgical strike happens and things, then a point is proved well. So something like that. So somebody is very powerful, Viryavanapi kaschit. In spite of being powerful, when it comes to strike, shastradi vishaye, when it comes to strike, adi shabdena, other contexts also you have to take. Somebody is a scholarly person, but he doesn't teach anybody. That is a waste of that inner power, right? So like that you can take other contexts also by the word adi. Na parakramate, he doesn't move forward, he doesn't take a step forward. Or manda parakramo va, he may take a step but very late and very slow and a very weak step he takes. That is also not useful. You have to strike quickly and firmly you have to strike, decisively you have to strike. That is how the things happen in the battlefield. Not a lot of rhetoric won't be there. Somewhere there is a lot of rhetoric, nothing happens. It should not be like that. Whereas in the case of Bhagavan, what to say, so much power and so much of movement of that power. Everything is with you. Tvantu ananta viryaha amita vikramascha. So this kind of a mismatch between virya and vikrama could be there in the world, but oh Bhagavan, in your case, there is no such mismatch. You are the infinite, you are the source of infinite power and also you are the source of infinite prowess. And hence, Bhagavan is rightly called Ananta Viryamita Vikramaha. Now that leaves only Sarvam Samapnoshi Tatosi Sarvaha. Sarvam Samastan Jagat Samapnoshi Samyagekena Atmana Vyapnoshi Yataha Tasmat. The Tataha is Tasmat. Tataha is there, Yataha you have to import. Because, therefore. Therefore is there because you have to bring in. What is the because? This is Samapnoshi, the word, the verb. Bhashyakara sees the verb very correctly, very critically he sees it. Sam is the upasarga, apnoshi. Apnoshi, the verb comes from aplu vyaptau. Aplu, lu is the dvarna, and vyaptau, that is the dhatu. And from that, lat is apnoshi. Apu, nu, si, and then nu becomes no, apnoshi. Okay? So that is how it becomes, apnoshi. Sam is the prefix. But very interestingly, the word atma is derived from the same dhatu. Aplu vyaptau. Apnoti iti atma. Atma is that which pervades. Aplu vyaptau, pervasive. So, did you not hear this verse? In Kathopanishad Bhashya it is quoted by Shankara from Linga Purana. Yadapnoti, yachapnoti yadadatte, yachatti vishayaniha. Someone knows it. He is picking up. I am happy to hear that. Yachapnoti yadadatte, yachatti vishayaniha, yachasya santato bhavaha, tasmad atmeti kathyate. Linga Purana. Linga Purana is standard Purana, not Shiva Purana. You see, from one thing to other, we can come back. Linga Purana is the standard, not Shiva Purana. Shiva Purana, 500-year-old. One of our earlier friends made it. These Vaishnava people are going very hard, very overdoing it. Therefore, he wanted to show them the place. Therefore, he wrote Shiva Purana and threw upon them. Now you handle this. So that is how it came. It is anti-Vishnu. That is Shiva Purana is like that. And whereas Linga Purana is Vyasa. There was no Shaiva Vishnu division at that time. It is Vyasa. Real Vyasa. That's why that verse you find in that. And Shankara knows that verse. Nobody else has quoted it. Only Shankara quoted it. And when he quoted it in Kathabhashya, we all feel great about it. Anyway, so that Atma, why Atma? Apnoti iti Atma. It pervades. You take Atma is yourself. So how do you pervade? You see the forms. You pervade the knowledge of the forms. Knowledge is cognition. Don't make a big deal, knowledge. वो तो cognition ही है, इतना ही बात. It is not a very big thing, it is. After all, it's a cognition. So, the cognition of forms. Who pervades the cognition of forms? You, the awareness, pervades the cognition of the forms. The cognition of sounds, you pervade. Cognition of touch, of smells, of tastes, you pervade all of them. You are there in all of them. And so when you enjoy pizza, you are there in that enjoyment. You like Coke, you are there in that Coke. The body is not there, you are there. The body suffers because of the Coke. You are there. And then in all emotions, you are there. In all positive and negative, all kinds of love, compassion, you are there, and hatred, etc., you are there. In all that, you are there. You think that you are hating the other person. Other person is sleeping happily. You are keeping awake unnecessarily. So you are there in that hatred. And in your intellect, you are there. In your sense of I, you are there. Everywhere you are there. The whole world is nothing but Vishwam, and you are there in all that. You are the Atma. That's why you are called Atma. Sarvantara Atma, that is Brodharanyaka. Therefore, that Atma he brought in suddenly, Where from he got Atma? Did he imposing his own idea there? No. Samapnoshi. Therefore, that Atma. So, samyak apnoshi. Samyak apnoshi means vyapnoshi. Put V, upasarga. So, very well pervading. How pervades? Only one thing pervades, that is the Atma. And that is always one. Ekena atmana vyapnoshi. You are pervading all with one Atma. Atma is the essential matrix, that is called Atma. Because it is the essential matrix alone that pervades. Nothing else pervades. Like waves, wavelets, breakers, surf, bubbles and whirlpools, all of them. What is it that pervades? Water. The one without the second, water, pervades all this variety of forms. Similarly, the one gold pervades the world of jewelry. So that's why the gold is the Atma of the jewelry. The word Atma you have to correctly understand. People, what happens, when you use the word again and again and get a conceptual fixation about the word. Conceptual fixation only, not that you have understood anything. Atma, Atma, Atma is Brahma, Brahma is Atma. Like that, you will be doing the dosha up and down or down and up like that. So you convert the whole blessed thing into a conceptual fixation. Now nobody should not say anything other than Atma is Brahma, Brahma is Atma. If somebody else says something else, you become, oh, what are you saying, like that. So not understood anything. Just playing with the words. Sophistry it is called. Sophistry. That is not the way to approach it. So Atma is the essential matter. Sara Tattvam it is. Sara Tattvam, that is the word Atma, which pervades the entire gamut of names and forms. A variety of names and forms are there, and the essential matrix, Sara Tattvam, that is the word that pervades the variety of names and forms, that is Atma. And you are that Atma. Ekena Atmana vyapnoshi yataha, because you pervade like that. Tasmat, tataha is tasmat, therefore, asi sarvaha, you are all. Asi bhavasi sarvaha. So you are all. Asi, you become all, or you are all. The become, he is not becoming, it is all the same. I know it. I know that, okay. So, bhavasi is bhu sattayam. It is said like that. It is saying like gold becomes necklace. No, gold doesn't become necklace. Okay, I know that. I very well know that, but still it is said like that, an expression. And you have to take it in the right spirit. So Shankara says, Tvaya vina bhotam na kinchidasti ityarthaha. Bhotam, Shankara says in one place, in Gita Bhashya somewhere, Bhota Shabda always has two meanings. And sometimes the first meaning, sometimes the second, sometimes both are taken. Bhotam is Panchabhutas. You know it, not a big thing that I am saying. So Prithivya Tejo Vayu Akasha. That is Bhuta. And then Bhotam is the life form. Anything which lives is called Bhotam. Both came from Bhu, Taprachaya. Same word but used in two different meanings. Here you can take both. Without you, there is no Prithvi, Apaha, Agni, Vayu, Akasha. You alone appear as Prithvi, Agni, Vayu and all that. Without you, none of these five elements are there. Or without you, there is no life form. There is no life form. There cannot be any life form without God's presence inside that life form, in that life form. Suppose God is not present in the life form, then the life form cannot exist. So that's why suppose somebody is saying there is no God. Suppose somebody is saying, you should know that the power, he has thought out something. He has a very sharp intellect. These Nastikas, They have a sharp intellect. They are not willing to believe. You want him to believe. He doesn't want to believe. So you want him to know, then he is open. He can. But our religious leaders, they don't want him to know. They want him to believe. He should believe and join the flock. So, but he refuses. He doesn't believe. So, therefore, he has a sharp intellect which refuses to believe. And he cannot believe. Suppose you say somebody is sitting there, waiting you to reach there so that he can give you a slap, etc. He is not willing to believe that. And you do something to him, he will throw goodies to you. And somebody else is ignored, not given anything. Now, you want to believe that. But the atheist is not willing to believe. An agnast questions it. How? Like that. We say they are bad people. They are good or bad. There is God in them. How do you know? You see the intellect, the sharp intellect which they have, and they use that intellect. We stopped using our intellect long back. We stopped thinking, whereas they are willing to think. And there is a power in that thinking, a power. Ananta Virya, Ananta Vikrama. That is the power behind that thinking. And that power is God. Therefore I see God in a godless person. And therefore I don't have an issue with him. In fact, he is my friend. Come, dear friend, dear brother. No, I don't believe in God. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You see, you believe what you believe. Doesn't matter. There is God in you. So this kind of a vision, this kind of all-pervasive vision, this kind of all-inclusiveness, this is the real religion. And one has to grow into that religion. I say this because the most devout people fall into the trap of believing that they don't have to transform themselves inwardly. They believe like that. That is not urgent. That is not the deal. To transform inwardly, that is not the deal. Then what is the deal? Perform enough acts of devotion. That is the deal. And we are doing it. Now what is enough? Okay, we do some more. We need not transform inwardly. We need not acquire that God consciousness that can wait. In the meanwhile, we are busy in performing some more acts of devotion. It will not suffice. It is useful, good, but it will not suffice. Now we are doing a lot of charitable work. Even that won't suffice. So that inward transformation has to come. Or no, we think of God only all the time. We think of God, morning God, afternoon God, evening God, like that, saying God a dozen times per day. We are thinking of God all the time. Or we are thinking of God as often as possible. So we go to every weekend, we think of God. Or on every day of festival, we think of God. What else can we do, should we do? As often as possible we are thinking of God. Is that not enough? No, it is not enough. None of these things will be enough. Therefore, the outer forms of religion are not adequate. That change of heart, that inward transformation is a must. And the transformation is such a thing it is. It expands the heart to such an extent that you can include the entire universe in your heart. In your consciousness, you can include the entire universe. You can say the entire universe is my kith and kin. You can say that. To that level, when a person transforms his inward consciousness, that is the true religion. These are some of the ideas that came to my mind as I am looking at that verse. You may say the verse, very beautiful verse. It is the best prayer also. Namah purastadatha prushtataste namostute sarvata eva sarva ananta viryamita vikramastvam सर्वं समाप्नोषि ततोऽसि सर्वः। ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्ण
Good afternoon. Few upcoming events in this month. One is coming Saturday, that's on September 23rd. We'll be celebrating Puja Swamiji's second anniversary Mahasamadhi Day at 10:30 a.m. The existing 1 week course will be concluded at 10 o'clock with 2 classes. After that, we will begin the function at 10:30 and try to conclude it at 12:30. On Saturday, September 30th, we have 2 talks in Tamil by Swami Omkaranandaji, who has come from India. He is disciple of Swami Paramarthanandaji and Puja Swamiji. So he is on US tour. Usually he stays in Sringeri Matha, that's where he belongs to. So we have arranged his talks on September 30th, that is on Saturday. And the subject is Kaivalya Navanitam. That's going to be in Tamil. Those who don't know Tamil, they are still welcome, because there will be someone, or Swaminathanji will be there to translate or give a gist of what he has said. If you are interested, please join. After that, then we have introduction to Jyotish by our Rakesh Sharmaji on October 6th through 8th, and on 8th we have review classes on Jyotish. So these are the few events coming up. Please come and join. And on 23rd September in the afternoon, we have a musical homage, a violin concert by students of Vittal Ramamurthy at 1:30 p.m. So this will not disturb our classes, our program. This is independently arranged after the lunch. Please come and join. And our Swami Pratyak Bodhanandaji, after all the camps, weekend classes, etc., he will be leaving for India on 29th, Swamiji, and 29th. After taking one class, he will be leaving on 29th. Then he will come back again in December and share classes with Swamiji. We wish him all the best and happy journey and healthy stay in India. Thank you, Swamiji. Thank you very much.